their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Telling the guys that we came out way too slow. We didn't have any energy the first quarter. So I don't really know. Got to look at the film to see, who did what plays we were calling, and, who was open. But I'm not really sure.
Justin, why do you think that was? Just the lack of energy.
Say it again?
Why do you think that was, the lack of energy you're talking about?
I don't know. I felt it as soon as I came into the locker room. I was, trying to pick up the guys, everything, but it still came out slow, still, didn't come out with that energy that we needed to, especially with this type of team.
Welcome into Mackie and Judd. No Phil today. He is with family, so it's Zolgad and Declan Goff. It is a Monday Statements after a Vikings loss, and there you have what we like to call a can of worms being opened by Justin Jefferson, who is a very, Declan, reasonable kid. He's very young. I think he's 22. He is very measured, so he's not going off. He's not, grilling people and saying, "Oh man, we stunk." But I will just start off statements by jumping off from that quote that you just played, because I think this is the A talker, if you will, from the Vikings loss to the Rams on Sunday. And I will just say simply this. And by the way, Jefferson had a lot more comments, some of which we will certainly play, but really that was the theme of the press conference, which is him saying as politely as possible that he's not pleased with things. And my statement is this, Declan: Justin Jefferson is 1,000% right. Justin Jefferson is right. I think his comments were dead on accurate. The building before that game, and I tweeted this out, and I wasn't the only person who felt this way. US Bank Stadium before that game on Sunday felt dead, and fans were coming in late. There was no buzz, no excitement. And Anthony Barr in his press conference pointed to that fact and said, I guess that when they did the pregame pep talk huddle thing, Zimmer felt it necessary to involve himself because the feeling in the stadium was so dead. And ordinarily, I think Dalvin Cook is pretty involved, and obviously he was not there because of COVID. And Barr said that's not an excuse, but the building was dead. Okay, that was true. I can confirm that. But, and this is what Jefferson is saying. Jefferson said, I walked into the locker room and it was pretty much dead. Like we had nothing. You were in the 7th and final playoff spot. And I know that's not great, but you know what? It's still a playoff spot. You had every chance with a very important, probably must-win home game to grab control, Declan. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if the fans are going bonkers or if the fans are sleeping or if the fans don't show up. It's imperative for the team, a team in that case, to create its own momentum and to be excited for that game. So I don't want to hear that this is on the fans. If the fans choose to be engaged, awesome. If they choose not to be, awesome too. They're paying tickets, prices. It's their right. Everything Justin Jefferson said, though, is absolutely correct. And the fact that a 22-year-old has to make the observation that he went into the locker room before the game and sensed that and tried to get guys up, inexcusable, a huge red flag. Anything that you want to say is accurate. That is as concerning as possible. And so Justin Jefferson is right.
Yeah, I would even say, I had this in buried in my statements, but you kind of kicked off with it. I'll just say, boo this team. That's one of my statements, is boo this damn team. For all the fans who showed up either expecting a big Vikings win or you showed up with that little bit of a Christmas hangover, you should be able to boo this team if they come out like that. And they have numerous trips to the red zone and they have every opportunity to win that game. And you come out like that and you put up that kind of performance, you should boo the team. Should Anthony Barr come out and blame the fans for not showing up? Not necessarily. But is Anthony Barr accurate when he says the fans didn't have that energy? Because everyone watching on TV, it looked quiet. You said it looked quiet. Other reporters said this is as dead as it has ever felt in US Bank Stadium pregame. Pregame hype at US Bank Stadium. I mean, if you ever want a little extra jolt of just adrenaline, go to pregame at US Bank Stadium. Typically, it's a fun time. And that wasn't existing going into the Rams game, and it clearly bled over. Like, if they wanted to, Judd, if that building was quiet to start, all right, it is Christmas. It's the day after Christmas. Things are just a little quiet. But if the game picks up, if you get those big interceptions, which Anthony Barr gave you, if you are able to convert into the red zone, well, now all of a sudden that building's buzzing. It's on the team then to also deliver on that, and then the fans will follow that lead. No, it's not what happened. So boo that team.
Yeah, exactly. But I just can't. Well, one, I shouldn't say that. I'll start again. I can believe that this team, because this team is so in some ways weird and not likable, I can believe that they weren't excited. But it is hard to believe that with what was at stake, and by the way, in a very winnable football game, in a game that Matthew Stafford and the Rams time and time again tried to give you. And if you win that game, you basically grab that final NFC playoff seed by the throat. And to have Justin Jefferson have to point this out. And again, I mean, he is 22. He's a star player. He's a great player. But you've got Kirk Cousins, you've got Anthony Barr. I know that Dalvin didn't play, but you've got a lot of veteran presences there, right? Who are supposed to use the cliche, supposed to step up and supposed to do a job of making sure that players are set to go. And the Vikings weren't. And this is just another symptom of the problem. This is just the latest symptom of what ails this team. And I don't care who you want to defend or who you think is good, because there are some good players. There's some very talented players. But that's just another sign when you go into a game that has enormous playoff implications for your team. And Justin Jefferson has to say, yeah, we'd really, and I mean, he wasn't making excuses and he wasn't spouting cliches of, well, we just didn't. He was mad because he knows what winning looks like. He's won a national championship, right? He knows what it looks like to win. And basically what he is saying in the kindest way possible is, I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who have no idea what this is supposed to look like. I mean, the number 1 seed at stake or the 7 seed, you're a player and it's a game with playoff implications. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I do think that this is an incredibly important discussion point, because this is the future right now. That was in fact, statement off a statement. That was a message, Declan. That was, to me, the latest message that change has to happen. Mm-hmm. Like that, when you have that guy, this is not some like backup who's frustrated. This is a star player. This is a fundamental, foundational piece of your franchise, hopefully for years and years to come. This is a guy who eventually is going to get paid big and deserves that. And he is telling everybody, that statement by him is a statement to everybody, ownership, his teammates, coaches, fans. This is not acceptable. Something has to change here. That's what I heard from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and for a player to come out after the game and have that, I mean, as reporters, as fans, as media member, like, I love honesty. And for Justin Jefferson to come out there and say that, that's great. If you have this preconceived notion of, well, he only said that because it's right after the game and he's pissed and he's forced to go up there on the microphone and talk about it. Well, good. Go up there and be pissed, Justin Jefferson.
But
that's honesty.
Guys, that that's the thing is players and coaches want to say, well, by Wednesday we're calmed down. No, by Wednesday you're lying.
Yeah.
By Wednesday you're telling us BS. So this whole thing about, well, in the heat of the moment, that's what we want. That's when you're going to fess up. And good for Justin for doing that. Because, I mean, there's a lot of, well, we just got, we got to go look at the tape again, right? Which he said, but he didn't say that in the context of, I don't really know, so I can't talk about. He is telling you flat out, honestly, in a moment of passion for the game he plays, which is what everyone should want. And for players to be like, well, he was just upset. Yeah, he was upset. He had every right to be upset. So, yeah, don't give me this. Well, right after a game, it's not a good time to talk to a player. No, it's the best time to talk to a player.
That's the best time, you
He's gonna fess up. Floor is yours.
Dude. All right, my next statement. I'll combine a little Christmas theme with that Vikings game, and it's the following statement is this: even when you get stocking stuffers, you still have to open your presents.
Okay.
I'm not talking about myself here. I had a great Christmas, stocking stuffers and presents alike.
Good.
I'm talking about Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay giving the Vikings stocking stuffers that were packed to the brim. The Vikings stocking was hanging at US Bank Stadium, and both Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay filled up that stocking with a bunch of goodies, right? Like usually the stocking is just full of little knickknacks, maybe a little candy or a treat. Not the big stuff, but you get some good stuff in a stocking sometimes. You find some nice little hidden gems. And Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford cooked up a storm for you to give you a nice stocking. And the Vikings saw that stocking, and they said, oh, wow. Because some people like to get their stocking first before they go up their presents. So they say, oh, great, this is my stocking. It's got all these little knickknacks. This is going to be a great Christmas. And instead of going back upstairs to open your presents, the Vikings said, no, we're good. We're going to just take the stocking stuffers. We're not going to open up the presents, which could be even bigger than what we got in the stocking. And instead, we're just going to continue to look at our stocking here and say, this is all the great things that are inside here. I'm not going to go up and see what Santa gave me. I'm not going to deliver the fans a big win after McVay and Stafford gave you every chance to basically win that game. I mean, McVay neglected to stop running the football against a defense that can't do it. Yeah, you went upstairs and said, no, I don't want to open up these presents. This Vikings team had every chance to win the game, and they bleeped it up. I mean, missing Jefferson in the red zone, terrible play calling by Clint Kubiak in the red zone. This was an opportunity to make it the best Christmas ever, and you blew it. So kids and football teams alike, when you see a good stocking, that's fine, but go upstairs and open your presents. Go up into your presents.
And yeah, and as Justin said post-game too, the red zone. Why aren't we more aggressive? And he's exactly right. And yeah, the Rams gave you that game. Matthew Stafford was terrible. Matthew Stafford was awful. He threw 3 picks. It could have been 5. Cam Dantzler, how he didn't pick off that OBJ intended target on the Rams opening series, on which they, by the way, scored a touchdown. I don't know. He just dropped the ball. There was another pass, easily could have been picked. There were 5 potential picks and probably more. Matthew Stafford was terrible. McVay, I know he's a bright, young, play-calling offensive mind, but I'm with you, Dex. I have no idea why he wanted to put so much trust in a quarterback who was clearly having a bad day. Right. When Sony Michel was slicing through you like butter. This was. Look, I mean, there's no question that the Vikings being flat cost them too, because there were momentum opportunities there where you could have ridden that wave. And by the way, to your point from before, if you ride that wave, guess who gets really excited and really loud for an extended period of time? That crowd. And you didn't do it. You're 1,000% right. Which leads to my next statement, Declan Goff. The greatest mystery of the 2021 Vikings, and there's a lot of them, is the run defense. I know Hunter is hurt, and I know Griffin is out, and I know that makes it easier to get around the edge because the edge is not set as well. But I still challenge you, film gurus, film warriors. I challenge you, though, to show me how the edge not being set as well is impacting the fact that Sony Michel, I'll say that again slowly, Sony Michel. I didn't say Earl Campbell. I didn't say Walter Payton. I didn't say Eric Dickerson, the former great Ram. I said Sony Michel, who was picked up for the Patriots and basically slapped in the Rams lineup, how he gouged this defense time and time again, which had Dalvin Tomlinson, which had Michael Pierce, which had Eric Kendricks. The linebackers were all there. The A-gap, the people defending the A-gap, the middle of the line were all there. And yet, the Rams became the latest team to slice through this run defense like it's butter. 159 yards, 131 from Michel. Now, I will say this. It's an improvement on a year ago Christmas Day when Alvin Kamara rushed for 6 touchdowns and the Saints went over 200 yards. But do you remember, Dex, on that day how Zim basically defiantly told us this is the worst defense I've had?
Yeah.
And then the Vikings went and tried to fix it. And Pierce, who opted out in 2020, he's been playing now. Tomlinson was signed as the big free agent acquisition. And again, the Rams gouged you all day long. There's a lot of frustrating things, a lot of them, about this Vikings team. But I honestly think the most inexplicable is just how flat out bad a unit that was supposed to have been largely fixed has been. Run defense.
Yeah, it's been remarkably bad. I mean, that was their emphasis this offseason. And Zimmer said that we're not going to have that ever happen to us again. And it'd be one thing if it was, Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry running up against you, one of the better backs in the league. But instead, it's Sony Michel, some slappy, as you like to say, basically, who's carving you up. And it's not to say that, the Vikings still shouldn't go into next offseason and try to fix their run defense because they have to. They just statistically cannot continue to run that back with that type of run defense. But in terms of the resources that they have spent to try to fix it, it's been bad. And I Dalvin Tomlinson was a good player with the Giants, and it sounds like Michael Pierce was really playing through injuries up until about a few weeks back, and he pushed himself through. So was he not 100%? No. But at the same time, you would expect that Sony Michel and the Rams would not run all over you like they did. And it's been a theme all season. They're now, I think 26th, 27th still. They're bottom 5 in run defense. They're a sieve. They're an absolute sieve. So it's unfortunate because that's where they put their resources basically in free agency, was to sew up their run defense, when now looking back on it, probably should have used that damn money to go get Joe Thuney or go get an actual offensive lineman. That's what you should have done.
It would have helped. Back to you.
My next statement, I will say this. Everything is on the line this week in Green Bay. Everything. Zimmer, Kirk, Spielman. If the Vikings lose to the Packers, which basically will nullify any chance of them making the playoffs because they're ready at slim support right now, you can bet the Wilfs can get a jump start on starting this fire sale a week early. There's no reason to wait until the initial Black Monday or take time after the season to assess. If you lose the Packers, it's time to pack it up and start this process. With the NFL now allowing coaches to interview for jobs, let's start that process. We don't have to wait until a self-reflection moment in middle of January to start that. If you lose to the Packers, it's over. I know Zimmer seems like the most likely one to go because he's the head coach and the easiest one to be the scapegoat. But let's be honest. Kirk hasn't played well over the last 5 games. Spielman is the one everyone still is iffy on. But it's been 728 days. Shout out to X-Twins News, our friend of the show on Twitter, who pointed this out. 728 days since the Vikings have been over 500. And that's no longer bad luck. That's not weird pandemic COVID season. That's a 2-year sample size of this roster not being good enough. And as much as we want to blame Zimmer and blame Spielman's roster construction, it hasn't been up to par. And Kirk's cap hit is too high next season to not try to fix this roster right now. Kellen Moore and the Cowboys put up, 35 points in the first half yesterday against the Washington football team. Woo! And you may as well start that process. If you're going to lose the Pack, you're going to play a meaningless game against the Bears, start that process early. And I don't know you're not going to blow out both of Zimmer and Spielman on that Monday after you lose, if you were to lose, in Lambeau.
Right.
But I do think the process starts immediately this time next Monday when we're recording right now. If the Vikings have lost to the Green Bay Packers, we're talking about someone being fired.
Interesting. Let's unpack that because I see the direction that you're going in. Here's what I don't know. So if they're going to start to talk to perspective or try to get a jump on, which I think you could start actually today, but if they're going to try and get a head start on talking to prospective head coaching candidates, they're not going to fire Rick a week from today.
I agree.
So and if Rick's going to get kicked upstairs, they might start the process. If Rick's going to be fired, I don't know if there's a lot of use in starting a process that's not going to involve the new GM. And I guess that's my question. And if Rick is going to be kicked upstairs and you're going to bring in a GM to replace him, do you start the process of talking to people before you've identified and or pulled the trigger on that GM? But yeah, I get your point, and my personal feeling is this, and it's my gut feeling. I don't think they're going to fire Mike before January 10th because he's been here so long and they like him, but I can see the argument about making that move now. However, if they fire Mike a week from Monday and they're like, well, this is going to give Rick a head start on trying to find a new coach, then I'm like, hold on a second. So Rick is going to survive this unscathed, which I don't like. So I guess I have mixed feelings about your direction, which I completely get. Because I think this thing just needs a complete change. And if Rick gets kicked upstairs to like president or some type of title, I'm fine with that, because I think that's probably, as was floated, I think, by Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, a couple weeks ago, I think that's probably a likely scenario. I don't think Rick is going to be fired flat out. But I mean, man, I just look at this entire thing and I think it needs fresh sets of eyes. And that's why I want the new people to come in and determine Kirk's fate. Because I could see being done with Kirk, but then I could also see deferring to the new people and saying, okay, clean slate. What do you think? But yeah, I'm torn on your idea, because I like being able to talk to people right now, potentially. But if it's going to be, and Rick's going to conduct the search, then I'm like, that's not thorough. That's not as thorough as I would like.
I guess the broad scheme or the macro of my conversation is, well, if they lose the Packers, it's over. Like it is over. The micro is, how quickly are we starting that process? Are we going to wait till the Black Monday? Are we going to have a self-reflection? Like, if you lose the Packers, it's over. Like, I just think the three-headed dragon there in Zimmer, Spielman, Cousins, I think it's over if you lose the Pack.
In fact, I will take that statement and run with it by saying this. I want it to be over. I don't want, at this point in time, when you flat out come out and play like you did yesterday, I don't want some weird now, well, we won our last two games and we got back into that 7 seed and we're the Minnesota Vikings. We don't give up, right? We furiously rallied. I don't want that crap. I've seen this before. I've seen it in St. Paul. So have you, Declan. I don't need that. I would much prefer that they go into Green Bay, that they lose. I don't care if they get waxed or they lose by 3 or by one score, one touchdown, which is what this team has made into a fine art form in 2021. I don't care how it takes place. I want it to be done. I really do. I see no useful purpose in this now. Do you? And you are certainly a bigger fan of the Vikings than I am at this point. I want them to be good because it's more fun personally. But I mean, do you see a point in like sneaking in? Because I think what we saw, when you can't show up when you're in the 7th playoff seed, and like this game is huge, and by the way, it's at home, and you show up like with the day after Christmas, I got to go back to work. I'm just done. I'm done. I'm done with we got to look at the film. No, we don't. I've seen enough. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm mostly done with it as well. To your point about reminding it of the old Wild Guard, that's where I'm at as well. I mean, it feels awfully familiar. It just feels, it's so similar.
It's just the same characters. We got our Parisis, we got our Suitors, we've got our Granlunds, we've got our Zuckers. It's the same thing. Yeah,
I mean, even 4 years back, when that run for the Wild was ending, and we had this conversation on Ventline yesterday of, well, who is the other core guys that you'd like to keep around? And you and I yesterday on the defensive side of the ball, like, well, I guess Daniil Hunter, right? Like, he's an elite pass rusher, but
like him a lot.
But like Eric Kendricks, who I like, is kind of now also his grades are taking a nosedive. Harrison Smith's play is not the same as he used to be,
and he's paid a ton.
And all those Wild players all the young Wild players, the Granlund, Nino, Zucker, all of them were axed too.
Yeah,
like no one has been kept around.
And here's the scariest part, because they're both good. And the parallel's probably more Suter than Parisi. Kirk Cousins is Ryan.
Yep.
He is because the same things, right, applied. Ryan was a good player. Ryan was a hell of a player, right? But it's always like there's something missing here, right? Like just behind the scenes, what's missing here? It's the same guy. All right, let's pause here briefly because you know what? Our statements are fine. Our statements, I mean, they're fantastic. Don't get us wrong. But more importantly than our statements, Randy from Cottage Grove. Yeah, that's right. Mackey's not here. Randy from Cottage Grove is going to give us his thoughts unvarnished.